Okay, we're live. So with me in the room is Tony and Floyd FP. For anybody that cares to join us, I've posted the link on the event. Getting a little bit of a late start. I made a run to the grocery store that took longer than I expected. So um, just to kind of get everybody who might not be familiar with the topic here, the reason for the hangout is because I wanted to give a little bit more discussion than I've been able to do, and a little bit more analysis on the topic of the post. It was posted by G Plus user who goes by the name of Jay Wing. He's a fundamentalist Christian. He is a biblical inerrantist, and also I believe he's King James only. If he's not King James only, he's certainly very partial to King James translation, the King James version, um, and has said that that's the best among the translations. Although um, he has certain issues, and I'm sure he would uh, take issue with my saying this, but it's clear, for example, that he does not accept flat Earth interpretations of the King James version, and we've had discussions about why it says circle rather than sphere when it talks about the shape of the Earth or whatever. But anyways, the bottom line is he believes that the Bible is inerrant, and that uh, there are no mistakes. Obviously, that's kind of the definition of inerrant. He believes also that it is completely scientifically sound, and that there are no issues with regard to science, and everything is either scientifically provable or is miraculous in nature and defies kind of scientific explanation. So that's his basic position um, with regard to the Bible. So to I'm going to go ahead and screen share to show the post here. So this was the link that he shared in the post, and I realized just really a few moments ago that it actually is either his blog or website. It goes by Biblical Foundations. I've seen some of the other content that he's put up without realizing that it was actually his content. Or at least he's a contributor, but this particular article was it's attributed to Jay Wing. Oh, and then and he actually gives me a skeptical contribution by Run Gavagai Run. I didn't notice that either before. So the passage in question is from Genesis chapter 30, and really it's verses 37 through 39 where the actual kind of meat of what's going on happens. So, and I'm going to scroll down here. It's Jacob took rods of green poplar and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and pilled white strakes in them. This is the King James version, and I will read a different translation that actually makes some intelligible sense. Hey, Turtle, welcome. And made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had pilled before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle ring-straked, speckled, and spotted. So in a more modern English, this is the New King James Version. just to kind of at least keep within the family of King James translations. Jacob took for himself rods of green, or in some translations it says branches, of green poplar and of the almond and chestnut trees, peeled white strips in them, and exposed the white which was in the rods. And the rods which he had peeled he set before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, so that they should conceive when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted, talking about their offspring. So, in one of the things that Jay Wing has claimed is that the Bible is very specific and accurate. And so my first objection to his kind of interpretation and position on the Bible is accuracy and specificity, because there are a whole number of different interpretations that you could have for what's actually happening in this passage, and it's very not specific. It mentions 3 types of trees. I've seen some people say that they're bushes from the Middle East. I've seen some attempts to assign scientific names or species names to some of these, and it's confusing what the treatment was. He's apparently peeled strips on these branches. What is the purpose of that? That's not clear. Were the branches supposed to cause the cattle to copulate? Was it the branches that caused the different offspring colorations? That's what most people interpret this as, and kind of the general idea that most people come away with from this passage thinking is that it was the visual of these striped rods that caused the animals to be striped. Jay Wing's take on this is that kind of, I guess, the chemicals from the branches could have leached into the water where they were drinking, and it's clear that they were drinking water from these troughs while they were mating, and that some kind of chemical compound that came from these branches caused the streaked and speckled and spotted coats from the offspring. So the other thing that's not clear then, if that's the case, is was it which one of those 3 branches or tree branches caused which one of the outcomes? So that's another point that's not clear. So if, let's say I just wanted speckled, I don't even know if these are sheep here. Maybe it tells earlier on in the passage what specific type of livestock this was, but it's not contained within this portion of the passage. But let's say I wanted just striped ones. Do I use the poplar, the almond, or the chestnut branches to accomplish that? But one of the nice things about this passage is, even though it has a range of different possible options that it's describing, you could test each one of those. It's not an unlimited number of things that were going on here, and so it's testable and falsifiable. And let me open it up. I intended for this to be more of a conversation. Does anyone welcome Phony Beetle Maniacs? Do you want to go by Gary? I don't know what to... you're still working on your audio there. That's okay. Welcome, Gary.
Go by Gary. It's fine.
Okay. So, what are you your thoughts on this passage, everyone, and
Is he making the claim that people can actually do this now and get the same results, or is he just saying that it happened once in the Bible and it could happen again?
no. Well, his claim is that this is a scientifically sound passage, that this was not miraculous, and then the point of his article that he posted is that there's a study out there, and we'll get to that in a minute, but that this study confirms this method of producing offspring of livestock with different colorations and fur patterns, I guess.
Well, it sounds like the livestock matches the sticks, right? It's just not like a chemical that's within the sticks that are altering the animals based on the chemicals themselves. It's as though the appearance, the outer appearance, is what's affecting it. There's nothing to suggest in the verses that chemicals are taking place, but you could throw that in there. But if he's going to rule out a miracle, then I would think this could be repeated or at least studied. But the passages themselves suggest that it's the appearance that caused it. You could certainly, I guess, scientifically test the chemicals of it, I guess, but.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. To me, and I've always kind of understood this as that Jacob's intention, and maybe he didn't know what was actually going on, but his intention was, I took it when I've read this in the past, was that it was the visual appearance of these streaked rods that caused streaking of the livestock offspring, and that's I've looked around at some other apologetics websites and things, and that's typically the understanding that they take on this, and then they try to explain, well, what was going on, but Jay Wing's theory is that it was he was putting these in the gutters of the watering troughs, and that it was the placement of the sticks or the rods in those troughs with the peeled branches that contributed to this, and he's basing that on this other actual scientific study that was conducted by a researcher from Duke University. So maybe we should jump to that and discuss that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is it usually viewed as a miraculous? I know you said J-Wing doesn't.
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
What it is, sorry.
Go ahead.
It's basically bushcraft. It's basically them chopping up the bark of the tree, exposing the pure wood behind it. It's basically like, I'm trying to find something that's comparable. Do you like when Bushmen chop down? I don't know if you know anything about Australia, but there is a thing where they take, I think it's the dollar tree, where they chop off the residual bark and reveal the thing underneath. That's what they used for. It can be used for numerous things. I think it's medicinal purposes and something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, sorry. And I think this is what this is about. It's about Jacob basically taking a tree and bushcrafting it.
Yeah, I wonder if there's similar stories to this, or if other cultures kind of had other stories that match this, or there was some sort of, yeah, like, I don't know, folk, uh, belief that this sort of thing could work. I'm not aware
It
of
does
any, but
work.
there might be.
It does work. It's not a belief; it's a fact. If you want to say it's a belief, that's fine. But I'm just saying that, like, uh, go ask somebody who's an Aboriginal Australian whether this stuff works, and it does.
So what exactly works?
The fact that what it's describing is taking off the bark of the residual of a tree and reducing the bark, and the bark has properties in that particular culture. Like sometimes it can have medicinal purposes, sometimes it can have like fiber purposes, sometimes it can have other purposes apart from that. Again, it depends on the tree.
Right. Well, to me, it almost sounds like the purpose that Jacob had in mind, looking at the passage, was almost like an aphrodisiac. That this was going to cause the flocks to get it on when they came to drink. I mean, it says. The rods which he had peeled he set before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, so that they should conceive when they came to drink. So, to me, the so that they should conceive, that suggests to me the purpose um, of his, or his intention of putting those rods there. Um, I don't know, when I see branches, I get horny.
Okay, what version is that from?
I think the obvious thing that people overlook when they see this, and I don't really get why people read those passages and then just goes over their head. Obviously, God is the one that does the supernatural thing here. It's not like sticks to it, you know. And the same is true of the passages that refer to where God commanded them to sprinkle the blood of a dove over a leper's hand and it would be cured. The Bible doesn't expect us to believe that if we can capture a bird and cut its throat and squeeze the blood over your hand, it'll get cured. It's obvious God is doing this. This is merely a ritual to demonstrate their faith in Him that He has them perform. I just can't hardly imagine anybody actually believes that the Bible expects us to believe that putting sticks in front of a cow is going to make it pregnant, or squeezing the blood of a bird on your hand will cure leprosy.
Why
I think
not?
that's a really absurd argument. Really, really.
Right. Based on our modern knowledge, but maybe they had a different view.
Well, and I don't know, I don't see where you would get that from, the text there. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't attribute any of that to the God of the Old Testament, or there's no mention of any kind of supernatural anything. It's just this is what they're going about doing as part of what they expect.
Okay, I mean, like, where do you get this reading from?
Genesis 30.
No, I mean, like, what particular version?
Well, I've read from the King James and then the New King James translation.
Okay, well, the NIV says that Jacob just basically took a branch from a particular album and plane tree and made white stripes of them by peeling the bark and exposing the white in the wood of branches. Okay, so again, this is what it's about. It's not about supernatural event. It's about somebody doing bushcraft.
So is it about just increasing the libido of the
No.
female?
No,
Or
it's
whatever?
about bushcraft. I mean, do you know what bushcraft is? I'll do you want me to explain it to you.
Yeah,
I think you should
you said
explain it.
like taking like roots or taking parts of trees and using them as medicinal purposes.
Yeah, I mean, like, medicinal purposes, again, the thing is that trees do have medicinal purposes. I mean, like, a lot of medicines we have today come from trees.
Absolutely, yeah. I use like aloe vera and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. That's from a plant. So
Sure. Well,
I don't,
and
I
I
don't
don't
quite see
discount
that
that.
again.
I consider that a possibility. You know, I would not. I wouldn't be completely floored if someone came up and actually did a study that, you know, where they tested, you know, this and said, well, this actually can do what it says it does. I mean, people around the world have different traditions and things that have come up through, you know, generations of working with animals that, you know, we may not be fully aware of or whatever, and that's fine. But so two things. One, this passage is not clear as to what's going on, because even within the two Christians that we have in the room here, there are two different interpretations, and Jay Wing has a third interpretation. So it's not crystal clear. And two, I don't know of anybody that has actually put this to a scientific test. But let me move on to discuss the study that Jay Wing cites in his article. I'm going to go ahead and screen share again. So he says, for a long time, no one could figure out what the peeled rods, poplar, hazel, and chestnut trees would do to cause streaked, speckled, and spotted animals. Some atheists to this day jeer at the Bible because they view this as nothing but fantasy, fable, lies, and outright use of sorcery, which, I don't know, maybe bushcraft could be considered sorcery, but maybe not, whatever. The science itself has discovered what the mother eats can affect the offspring. And then he goes on to cite this study, and the citation. Let's see, reference. The mom's diet during pregnancy can affect child's lifetime cancer risk is one of the things that he cites, and then what a woman eats before conception affects her child's DNA, nutrition programming, mother's diet, and baby's health. So, sure, all of those things may be true, but none of the studies that he cites, and this is the one that kind of was the major thing here. It says it's becoming unavoidable to conclude that there's something going on besides just genetics. In people, a forebearer's diet can influence obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. In mice, diet can influence body weight, blood pressure, and even fur color, because examples of this inheritance are only starting to emerge. Scientists don't know the full extent to which diet influences health. Blah, blah, blah. But this is from Dr. Robert Waterland and Randy Jertle, nutritionist at Duke University Medical Center, North Carolina. So, and he's cited a news article that references that study. So that's his primary source for trying to claim that the mother's diet can be, can influence the fur color.
Yeah, but to that extent, I mean, he's saying, oh, well, yes, a mother's diet will affect the fetus and so forth, but then he takes it to this far extreme. I don't think you can cite those studies as support of something this this dramatic a change.
Right. Well, and to say, I could see where he might say this gives some credence to at least the possibility that there's something more to this little passage in Genesis than some people have given it in the past, that there's some scientific substance to this. But his conclusion is we see God's divine wisdom in genetics some 37,000 years ago, verified by science and medicine.
Right.
That's that's way off the mark.
I would
Based on-
agree. I think since we have empirical science and scientific evidence of intelligent design in genetics now, I think arguments that pointing to something like this and then arguing, well, God couldn't have been the one that did it. It had to be something about the color or arrangement of the sticks is pretty moot. I mean, if God can design DNA, a multi-level hierarchical, three-dimensional, some geneticists say four-dimensional information package of coded in algorithmic input-output, copy-paste and insertion, duplication, backup system of information which has multiple hundreds of hierarchical of information pathways into the cell. I think it's pretty easy to believe that if God tells a guy, if you do what I say, I'll make something happen for you.
Mhm. Yeah, but there's no evidence that this was a message or instructions from
Yeah, I mean,
the God of the Bible in that passage.
I would go further. I mean, the thing is that almonds and stuff like that do have healing properties, well, skin caring properties. I mean, there are many like skin care products that use like oil of almonds or oil of certain plants to do skincare, and I don't think it's that out of the realm of possibility. The ancient Jews being around that could have noticed that. So I don't think
Sure.
it's necessarily a miraculous thing. It's just like being around like a certain plant or a certain. I mean, you'd have to be stupid not to notice it. It's like I'm not sure whereabouts you live, you people, but imagine that. I mean, like where you can get oranges or where you can get lemons or whatever locally, if you have the sort of climate for growing them. I mean, I don't know what kind of climates you live in, but I'm sure you live in more tropical climates than I do in Manchester. Um, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that the Jews would know, would especially if they're around the trees all the time, would know the properties that they have. Especially as they don't have like all of Ulay or what the bloody hell we have nowadays and other skincare products that we have today.
Well, sure. I mean, just like soap came about because there was ash that got leached into like rivers and things, and kind of rendered fat, and they discovered that eventually that the lye and the fat could be used together to clean things. Yeah, all that's fine. They discovered, well, when the women were washing their clothes in the river, kind of downstream from where they had made their sacrifices, that the the water got their clothes cleaner because of that what we now recognize as the ingredients for a lye-based soap. Um, yeah, I have no problem with understanding that, but here's where, to me, where the rubber meets the road for J-Wing's ideas and claims here. It's if you want to say that the Bible is 100% scientifically sound, and that this passage has scientific basis. The challenge that I gave to Jay Wing in that thread was, if someone did a test, this study that he cites doesn't test poplar, almond, and whatever the third thing is there, but the three different types, and it doesn't test it for cattle. I looked back in the Genesis chapter 30 there to see, and it is cattle that they were talking about. Those things weren't tested. Those in this study that he cites, and this is a falsifiable claim. If it was it actually has scientific basis. We could go out, we could test to see if having the water with these branches, with stripped things, all of this is reproducible. Will it render offspring of different coats?
There is a possibility that hasn't been considered. Let me read you just about 2 paragraphs from an article that addresses this subject. It's called Jacob and the Spotted Sheep. Genesis 30:37 through 40 describes how Jacob introduced changes of color in the fur of the sheep by having them drink water in which the peeled branches of 3 different trees had been placed. While most geneticists ridiculed this idea that was possible, there have been some weak attempts to apply Mendelian genetics, etc. I'll pass this up. Let me go on to the next one, part of the paragraph. Classic Jewish commentators like so-and-so and so, I can't read their names, deemed this story to be ridiculous. Interesting, both of these stress how Jacob placed the peeled sticks into water. Let's see. It's possible that the only recently, a recent advent of epigenetics that the story can be understood, especially in parental nutrition effects on epigenetic gene regulation of fur color. Here's an example. It says, epigenetics is the study of heritable traits in gene expression that occur without change in DNA sequence, and a phenomenon excuse me, which violate Mendelian genetics. These non-DNA variations can be transmitted in the cell and organismal lineages. What is particularly intriguing is the extensive literature on the role of parental nutrition on epigenetics. What is most relevant to the Bible story of Jacob and the sheep is that the research early on nutritional influences that affect fur color in mice and sheep. It goes on to state that the 3 tree barks which were peeled were Liveth, Lock, Huz, and Armon, names transcribed by the NJPS as poplar, almond, and plane. The botanic identification has been verified by rabbinoids. The question remains whether these are specific. There are specific free amino acids such as methionine and chlorine in their bark. Dr. Josh Klein, a plant pathologist and expert on plant fungi at the Volcani Research Institute of the Israeli Ministry of Agriculture, suggests that there are fungi as filaments under the bark of those trees that could contain these specific amino acids. He stated that the fungi are very host specific. Peeling the bark could make these fungi available for water extraction. So apparently there is a potential scientific explanation for it. If the appropriate fungi were existing under the bark of these trees, as is known to be, and therefore possessed the proper amino acids which, when enter the cell, could cause epigenetic changes to the DNA, which would result in a change of gene expression in the offspring, and thereby affect the color of the fur in the offspring. So epigenetics is, there are chemical factors that attach themselves to the DNA molecule. When people think of DNA, they just think of the base pairs, but DNA is more than just adenine, cytosine, thymine, and guanine. It's more than that. And a base molecule, a sugar ribose backbone. It's more than that. There are actually very minute molecules that attach themselves along the DNA and act like triggers for gene expression. If some of these are present, a gene will be expressed in a certain way. If they're not, a gene will be expressed in a different way. That's just known genetics. So I can see a potential scientific explanation for this if the appropriate amino acids were available to that bark, and the animal drank it and got a large dose of this appropriate amino acids, could cause epigenetic changes in the organism, which would result in a changed gene expression in the offspring and result in a different color fur. Mm-hmm. So there is a potential. I think that is a clearly valid potential. I won't say it's absolute, but from what I know about science, that is clearly a potential explanation.
It's good that it can be actually tested. I wanted to bring up the point that a couple of verses before, it looks like Jacob and Laban were actually splitting up their herd or their flock of sheep. So Jacob actually pulls out all the speckled and striped goats from the flock for him to keep. And it kind of looks like there was like a bigger gene pool to begin with, and they just separated the speckled ones from the not speckled. Jacob, to kind of reproduce his flock, he used this little bushwhack trick in order to just increase his flock number. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah, I think this was. I mean, Jacob was like a trickster in the Bible, and like, I mean, he tricked his brother Esau out of his inheritance, and I think this was, if I remember correctly, I should have gone back and read through the whole kind of narrative here, but this was essentially a way of getting more
Right.
cattle for himself.
Like taking all the white ones and using the sticks to turn them into speckled, so they know that they're his.
Right.
Right, but
So-
sorry.
Couldn't that gene?
You don't think that, like what he's actually describing is the way that they would diet. They would provide a good diet for sheep, like, you know, providing certain trees, certain like sustenance. Because again, almonds and like other plants would provide good sustenance for a sheep, especially in that climate. You know, so that's more of a realistic idea than, let's say, I don't know, like, for example, to say that Pacific speciation happened in that Pacific event.
Interesting.
No, I'm asking the Abner question, so I'm just wondering that, because again, I'm not a creationist, so I'm just wondering, like, you know,
Right.
like, I do know that diets can produce different types of animals. I'm just wondering, could it happen in that short amount of time?
Yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, well, and the other thing, I mean, back to kind of the initial issue that I raised with this not being specific. I mean, one, it doesn't tell you, you know, if the combination of all three of these branches is what it is. It doesn't tell you, you know, if this was a scientific paper, it would tell you the quantity, the amount of dilution that was needed in the water. It would tell you how much water, what percentage of the chemical compound was needed to be, in parts per million, and all of those very specific scientific measurements in order to produce the effect, so that other scientists who came along behind them would know how long did they need to drink this water. The study that talked about the changes in the mice, that was during gestation, not during copulation, that they had that kind of effect. And
I think expecting the text to provide all of that is going too far, way too far.
Well, I don't expect it to, but I do think
okay.
that to make the claim that it is a scientific, text, or to say that this study proves. Here he says that therefore the Bible is shown by science to be 100% right, and that the mating of the herd's mothers drank in their water affected them coming out spotted and speckled.
Well, I mean, we see passages all the time where God provides an explanation of something that sometimes it's not possible to figure out what it's talking about until modern science catches up with the Bible. For example, and God doesn't provide all the details of it. For example, in the book of Job, chapter 38, it states that God overturned the mountains in his anger. Now, if we read this with a first grade reading comprehension, we might think that God, a giant mighty hand came out of the clouds and grabbed a mountain and rolled it over. But we see now, today, we understand that it was the flood of Noah that caused these mountains to be overrolled, the pressure in the continents, mountain building, and plate tectonics. And we see, hold on. When we look at the mountains, we see they have been folded and rolled, and that's a geologic fact.
Well,
So-
yeah, but I don't think there's no scientist that is claiming, or that, at least I can say that is not the consensus among probably 99% of scientists.
Yeah, and
That's
everything
the
learned in
explanation.
science, and everything learned in science was once 99% not supported by the scientific
Oh,
community.
come on, Evan. That's not true.
It is true. That's how science advances, by overturning
No,
what's
no.
believed to
Well, the
be
way
true
that
by the scientific
science advances
community.
is that is that we learn from our mistakes and we make corrections.
Well, let me give it to you in a real simple terms. Okay, the Bible says God opened the fountains of the deep. They're there. It's called the mid-oceanic ridges. They're 6 miles down. Okay, hot water's still coming out of them. God says that the earth was divided. That's a fact. We all know. Even the secular mainstream geologists admit the continents were once more much compacted, and the split in the crust of the ocean floors has forced the continents apart. They agree with creationists on that. They agree also that the pressures in the continents is what forced the mountains to uplift. They agree with that. They agree also that the mountains have folded strata. They don't agree about how the folded strata occur. So we
Well,
have
vast majority of
so
scientists
so
agree about how that happened.
so,
It's just the
so appealing
fundamentalist
to
biblical.
authority on that, it doesn't get anywhere. But that's just a way of slipping out from under the evidence itself. Just
Well,
appealing
but
to authority.
that's the thing. You're claiming victory over the evidence when
No, I'm claiming the evidence is victory.
the experts in the field
Don't need them. You need the
disagree
evidence.
with your position.
Don't need them. Only need the evidence.
Yeah, well, but
See,
Evan's
appealing to
point is
authority,
taking all
appealing
that
to
takes place
authority
over
That's
doesn't
not
millions
what
of
an
years.
argument for authority is.
appealing to authority doesn't
That's
change.
not what appeal to authority is.
Look, it doesn't change the evidence.
Right,
There's,
Evan,
there's
you know
nothing in
what
Jones that
appeal to
suggests what
authority
you're
is?
claiming at all.
The
Here-
mountains are rolled and folded, right? The Bible, the mountains are rolled. Just simple.
This is
The
this
mountains
is
are rolled and folded.
here's a
They
free
have been
copy
overturned.
there.
Okay, and the Bible says God overturned them. Okay, so I agree with the Bible. The Bible seems to.
You know, we don't know that it's referring to that at all. You're just making it.
Well, the Bible does say God overturned the mountains in His anger, and the mountains have been overturned.
but once again, this is
Have
an
they not?
example of it not being specific. It's not
Yeah.
clear. You are applying an interpretation to it, and other people have applied different interpretations to it because
This is all I need.
it's not clear.
This much is clear. The mountains have been overturned,
Well,
and the Bible says God
no.
overturned. Okay.
We don't
So
know
you-
it means that what it's talking about there.
No,
Hmm.
and to say that it have been overturned, most of
say
the, I would say that from my understanding of geology and plate tectonics, they say that it has been pushed upwards,
Mhm.
not that it's been turned over.
Oh, they
Yeah.
have been folded and rolled. Yes, they do agree that the mountains have rolled sideways as they've been.
How
pushed
long
out.
ago do you
But
think
not
that
overturned.
They agree with that.
How
Well, how do
long
you
ago
get
do you
folded
think that
strata?
happened?
See? The thing is, they're going to have a different explanation as to how the strata got folded, but their explanation is absolute nonsense. Rock doesn't bend. Rock doesn't bend.
No, we're going to listen to scientists. We're not going to listen to you, Neff.
Excuse me. Well, you won't learn anything from them.
Well, we can't learn anything from you.
You just
You're
get
scientifically
packaged
ignorant.
lies. Just get packaged lies from them.
Oh yeah, right.
Evan, right. Do you know what calling people lies means? Is that they know what they're saying is untrue, but that isn't the case. If they believe what they're saying to be true, that's the lie. It's a mistake. You need to
I don't-
understand
I
the
don't-
difference.
Arguing from authorities doesn't change the evidence. I don't know how
If
many
that's not
times-
what an argument of authority is.
Yeah.
You know what an argument of authority is? I mean, I'll explain to you if you want. An argument of authority is an unestablished authority. Somebody who works in the field and is learned in the field is not an argument of authority, but is citing somebody who has done the study, done the work, and is studied. Right, Evan, can I give you a point? Right, there are people who do not believe that Jesus Christ exists as a historical person. Okay, those people are stupid, right? And the reason is that they don't understand that there are historians who are not Christians who accept that Jesus Christ existed, and they could use the exact same arguments you are falsely. So again, the point I'm trying to make to you is that people who do this for a living, they're not just come lately people. Have come to the point that again they don't think that science works in the way. Now you have to explain why they're wrong. Again,
Take a look at. Here's what I would rather do. I'd rather you look at that mountain and tell me it hasn't been overturned. I just would rather you looked at that mountain and told me it wasn't overturned, and then I'll go my way. When you say it has not been, I'm happy. Are you going to tell me it hasn't been? Has that mountain been overturned or no?
No.
Okay, thanks. I will pray for your mind. Have a good evening.
Hey, well,
He mean like overturn like a pancake? You flip a pancake or something? I mean, I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean the layers looked like they had been folded, but that is that the same thing as being overturned?
Yeah, he switched to folded, and I was like, well, folded, like, you fold some sheets, like, I would give him folded, but that's not what the verse says. It says overturned. And then when you divide something, like, I mean, how general can you get? I mean, I don't understand, like, if you take something in the Bible that's so general and wide, and then science comes along and makes a detailed report of what actually happened, and then you go back and say, oh, by the way, this is what they actually meant. I think there's a fallacy in there somewhere.
It's kind of a I forget what it's almost a ad hoc explanation where you're
rationalization.
Yeah, you're kind of packing something in, and that's exactly the kind of rationalization that Jay Wing is engaged in here. He in the last portion of the discussion that I had with him, he made the comment. Where is it? He said, "Oh, that's such a long thread. I'm sorry." I've almost got it. Something about that I should stop trying to prove the Bible wrong and try to prove it right. And I said, right. I mean, that's not the way to go about trying to figure out what's true or what's not true, right? Yeah. I mean, if you that's all that is just confirmation bias.
Yeah, great.
There you go.
I'm interested in finding out what's true. I'm going to try and take into account all of the evidence that's pertinent, and evaluate it to the best of my ability, using my own reason. That's all I've got, and come to a conclusion based on the evidence that I've seen. It's not about trying. I'm not trying to prove it wrong. And in my conversations with him, I'm pointing to these things that are, in my view, problems, especially problems with the kinds of claims that he's making about inerrancy. I mean, to me, that is a very large burden to try and prove, because all you need is one problem in the Bible, and it's not inerrant. And I've pointed to many instances where I think that it's examples of the Bible being in error, and he has he has batted them all away and dismissed them, or said that I've twisted things, or it's one of the things that I actually do enjoy about Jay Wing is he's almost unlimited creativity and gymnastic ability to try and play things out and explain why they're not mistakes or errors.
A lot of mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
I sometimes I forget too that when the guy said before, I think his name Darwin something, I forget his name, but God overturned the mountains, and then he found mountains that were overturned. I keep forgetting that he already believes that God overturned the mountain is true, regardless of either he found some overturned mountains or he didn't. It'll always be true. So what's the point?
Yeah, if the mountains were overturned, instead of seeing kind of like the folds in it, it would look almost like the middle of a Swiss cake roll, right? It should look like a spiral inside of the
Yeah,
mountain.
that's what I would imagine, like a
Or the
hoagie or
layers could
something.
be upside down, and there are some instances where layers have been kind of flipped over upside down, and we know that because the younger layers are on the bottom and the older layers are on the top in one section uh, of those layered rocks.
Hmm.
Okay, but
Yeah,
then
landslides, mudslides, these catastrophic events, they can
well,
really, in a flash, just hide a bunch of stuff. Crazy.
well, the thing is that if you're arguing with biblical inerrancy, you're arguing for a position that the Bible isn't holding in itself. For example, it is numerous types of writing in one book. So basically, you're trying to put your own interpretation to a book which is written in different type of styles. I mean, you can't just say, well, this one type of style applies to a book. It just doesn't work. I mean, personally, as somebody who is a Christian, I don't believe the Bible should be read one type of way. I think it's, I mean, this is my problem with fundamentalism, is that it teaches people, well, you should read it just this one type of way. It's like, no, it's like, it takes thought and understanding to read a book, even if you don't believe it.
And it's a collection of books. I mean, you're right.
Yeah, yeah,
They weren't written by the same person, and
no,
they all had different views on different things. And
yeah, yeah, I concede that. That's fine, but it doesn't mean it's not true.
So, well, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. We've been going for just about an hour here, and I think we've touched on the main points that I wanted to address. Does anybody else have any final thoughts or comments?
No,
Good. Okay. Well,
it's
thanks
done.
everybody for.
Thanks for inviting me. It's cool, man.
Yeah, I had a good time, and we'll catch everybody later.
All right, take it
See
easy,
ya.
guys.